Hey everybody, my name is Trevor, this is NerdLearn. I'm going to show you how to install CentOS 8 and enable remote access into your new computer. You can install it on a physical laptop, a server, or you can use any kind of virtualization technique. Alright, real fast, this is what the agenda is. So, why are we choosing CentOS? How to actually install it, update it, get remote access. And if you're using a physical laptop, how do you modify the power settings so that when you close the laptop lid, it doesn't turn off? So why are we choosing CentOS? It comes down to we want to choose Red Hat, but it's not free. So Red Hat is used in the enterprise and the business world because of its focus on stability and security. So we're going to use the free alternative. And the important aspect for us is that one, it's free, but two, we can use it to obtain Red Hat certifications. So let's get started. So we're going to have to download the operating system. So how to do that? We're going to go to centos.org and we're going to click on download. And over here on the left, we're going to choose, for a typical Intel or AMD processor, we're going to choose this x86-64. We're going to choose one of the links. And we're going to choose our download method. So some of these end with a torrent. And clearly that's going to be a torrent, whereas these others are a direct download. So the boot ISO is the bare minimum to get this entire process running, and it's going to download the packages from the internet during the installation process. The minimal install is if you intend to only use a command line interface and you do not plan on using a graphical user interface or a GUI. I'm going to choose the DVD1.ISO because this has the GUI and all the software packages built in. You can download this, and you do not have to install the GUI. You will have the benefit of not needing to download quite as much. So essentially our download is up front versus on the back end. So I've already actually downloaded this. If you're using a physical computer, you're going to need to convert the ISO and put it onto a thumb drive and make it bootable. So one such software is Etcher. So if you go to balena.io/etcher, you can go here and you will just click on download. And there's other alternatives for Windows and Linux. So mine is already installed. For Windows users, there's this other alternative, Rufus. During the process, it is a little slow, so you may want to read up on SC Linux as for one example, which is another reason that we're choosing this particular distribution. Now it's time to place the operating system onto a thumb drive. So I'm going to plug in my thumb drive. And when I get this warning, I'm just going to choose to ignore it. This doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. So in my case, I've used this drive before, and I'm familiar with this particular pop-up and the fact that it still works. We're going to pick our operating system. It's probably saved under downloads. And I'm going to choose this Memorex USB drive. And then followed by flash. Alright, punch in the correct administrator password. And now we're going to wait on the flashing process. It's going to copy the files onto the thumb drive. And then in the second phase, it's going to verify that all the information is accurate. Okay, so we're burning the ISO file, the operating system, onto the thumb drive and making it bootable. It's all done. So I'm not too worried about this error, so I'm going to eject it, because now I'm going to need to plug the computer or plug this hard drive into my laptop. So for the sake of recording, to make sure that you have a nice clear screen, I'm going to set up a virtual machine and run through the installation process. I will be plugging this drive into my laptop. Happens to be a Dell Precision. I'm going to hit F12 to access my boot options, and I'm going to select the USB drive and then just run through the installation. Okay, so I'm going to set up a new machine, and I'm going to double click this install from disk image. And because I've chosen it before, I can just select this one. Otherwise, I would hit the use another disk. And I'm going to skip the easy installer, and I'm going to stick with the legacy BIOS because it's a little bit more reliable on the virtual machine. I'm going to customize my settings, and I want to give it a new name. And then what I like to do is kind of go through each one of these. Sometimes I will put my username password hint. I don't put the actual password, but I'll put a little hint in this little area. That way I can remember what it is. All right, so on this particular system, I'm going to raise it up a little bit. So I'm going to give it 2 gig of RAM, 2 cores. I prefer bridge networking, so I'm going to switch over that. And if you chose one firmware type, but then you decided that you actually wanted to switch, you can do it right here under the advanced options. But you have to have the computer, this virtual machine turned off. But so mine is all set up, and I'm just going to hit play, and I'm full screen it. So right now we have the center option highlighted. And I'm just going to click into my window and up arrow over to install. Okay, now we choose our language. In my case, this is accurate. I do want English from the United States. And on a side note, if you use a Microsoft Hyper-V, often this quit and continue button are not visible. So what you can do is click down here where you can test out your keyboard, but you can also type, well, looks like you're gonna have to, there you go. So hit tab 2 times, and now the continue button is highlighted, and hit the enter or the return key. I'm going to update my time zone. I live near Denver. And I want a server with a GUI. And I don't want to put any of these additional packages on just yet. Now, if you downloaded the DVD version, you do not have to have the GUI. So if you want command line only, but you wanted to save yourself the trouble of downloading all the packages from the internet and just as one fell swoop from the ISO image, then you can choose the server. But there's other options that you can explore. So in this case, I want server with GUI. I'm going to keep things simple on this virtual machine, and I'm going to go with the automatic partitioning. But what I recommend is if you're going to put it onto a physical computer, use a virtual machine 2, 3, 4 times and experiment with putting your software on and determining what your partition sizes need to be. Automatic does not always work for everyone. I want to assign a static IP address, so I'm going to turn this on. It did pick up an IP address, but it's not the one that I want. So I'm going to add an IP. So the net mask you can use as a number, such as I have a 16 net mask, or you can type it out in this type of a format. Gateway typically is your router for your home network, or it'll be the switch that's located in your building on a larger network. Switch over to the DNS servers. You can use internal or external. I happen to have 2 internal DNS servers. And if you want to add any search domains, like whatever your domain is, whatever.com, I'm going to hit save, and I'm going to switch out the host name and hit apply, and we can see that it changes over here. And I'm going to begin the installation. I do recommend, if this is the first time, just click everything and just begin exploring what it is, even if you don't make changes, even if you don't necessarily understand. I'm going to set my root password. If you choose a very easy password, in this case I've chosen Red Hat, all lowercase, we can see that there's a warning down at the bottom, and we're going to have to hit done twice to confirm it. So we hit it one time, we can see that the warning is a little bit different. We hit it a second time and it actually accepts it. And if you're still in the middle of your installation and you change your mind, you want a more complex password, then you can click on this and choose something more complex. So we have this user creation. If we leave this blank after we're done installing, once this says this meter has filled up, we're going to restart and we'll be at the screen to accept our license. But on that screen, we will have to create a user. So either way, we have to create a user. So let's just do it right now. I personally like having the word admin or something that represents admin in my username, so that way it is more clear that I am doing an administrator task, and whatever I'm doing has the risk and possibility of messing up the computer. So now we're just going to wait until this finishes. On a virtual machine, this typically takes about 8 to 10 minutes. All right, everything is all set. So after 8 to 10 minutes on a virtual machine, this will be fully installed, and we're just going to reboot it. We accept the license agreement, and we do our first login. We're presented with our language again, and we can use the location services or not use them, and we can attach additional accounts if we want. This here is a GNOME tutorial for the interface, so this way you can learn how to launch applications and some of the other items. So I recommend spending at least a few minutes at some point in time and checking those out. Right now, we're going to get the operating system updated. So we're going to use sudo dnf update. Instead of the dnf command, we could also have used the yum command. For CentOS 8 and Red Hat 8, the new way to update is through dnf. But yum is still supported. So if you still have some old scripts, or if you're finding help on the various forums, yum is still a very good option. We want to accept this new GPG key. And now that everything is installed, I can see that there is a new kernel. That is actually what runs the operating system and launches all the processes and stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and restart. So we can do sudo reboot. Yep, just verifying it was reboot. Or we could use the GUI, and we just click on this little icon over here, and we would choose restart in the center. Okay, log back in, and now we're going to enable another terminal, and we're going to enable SSH. So that way we can remotely access and administer this box through command line. Clicking on activities followed by terminal. We're going to type sudo systemctl status sshd. So we're going to check what the current status is before we actually change anything. So I can see that is actually already enabled and running. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up a terminal window on Mac. Also same for Linux. Although if you do have iTerm2 already installed, then that's a little bit better. But for our basic purposes, either one will work. Now, if you're on a Windows computer, you will need to download PuTTY. So the way to find it is you can just search for PuTTY, and it's this one with a very unique URL, and we click on PuTTY, and then it tells you what the latest version is and download it here. And so most likely you're going to be on a 64-bit Windows, so you're going to choose this MSI file right here. For some reason you're on an older and 32-bit, or you want one of these other choices, then you do have others. So you would just click and you would run that. And what that would look like is this. So at this point, you would just punch in the IP address here, port 22, and you could save your session. You would just give it a name and such. And there's other features such as automatically using your username and specific colors and things like that. So to find our IP address, we're going to type IP address. You can also shorten address to anything all the way from full-blown address to just simply the letter A, and you will be able to find it. So this is our IP address on this particular computer because that is what I set it to during setup. During the installation phase, I assigned a static IP address. So the bare minimum is SSH space and the IP address. However, if you already know the username, you can save a little hassle and you can type it. And so it ends up being SSH space user account at IP address. So my Mac has connected to this IP address before, but it was a different computer. And so it has the old information into this file here. So what I'm actually going to do is remove it. So this is the password for the Mac. And then I would just go in and find the line, and we're just going to delete it. We're going to Control X to exit our file. It's asking, do we want to save it first? I'm going to hit Y. Yes, I do. Do I want to use the same exact name as before? Yes, I do. So I hit Enter. If I did not, then I can adjust the file name. So up arrow 2 times. And now it has not seen that fingerprint because it used to be in the file. Now it's gone. So I'm going to say yes. And now it's asking me for the password on the remote system. So as we can see right here, this is the remote system, CentOS 8-YouTube. Also, if I do IP address, and again, you can use anything from IPA to IP address, so various forums you'll see adder, and we can see that this is the same computer. Now if SSH was not already enabled, then what we would do is we would use this command here. Sudo systemctl enable --now sshd. That will enable SSH to start on boot up. That's the enable portion. And then because we have --now, it will trigger a start. Alternatively, you would do it as 2 lines. Alternatively, you would run this to enable the boot up service, but it does not immediately start sshd. And you would have to follow it with a second command of start. Obviously ours is running, so I'm just gonna get rid of all that. So now what we're gonna do is change the settings for the physical laptops so that you can close the lid without the system going into suspend or turning itself off. This is going to allow you to set it on your desk, maybe tilt it up on its face, and basically just have some more space. You might have a shelf down in your basement. You can put these computers, now that you have remote access, you can put them off to the side. So in order to do that, we're going to use this command here. We're going to do sudo nano. This is going to be any text editor that you want. So sudo nano /etc/systemd/logind.conf. We're going to type in our administrator password. And we're going to scroll down a little bit. We're going to use my notes real fast. And we are looking for HandleLidSwitch and HandleLidSwitchDocked. So we'll just put that off to the side. So HandleLidSwitch, we can see it right here. So I'm going to delete the comment character. And I'm going to change the suspend to ignore. And then we have LidSwitchDocked. That is this one right here. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to keep that one on ignore because it's already there. Control X to close our file. Do we want to save changes? Y, yes. Do we want the same file name? Yes, we do. So enter. And then now we need to restart our systemd logind service. So sudo systemctl restart systemd-logind. And at this point, this is when we would test our system. So we would go over to the laptop, we would close the lid, and we would verify that we can actually still get into this. I hope you found this video useful, so stay tuned for more videos in the future.